Alright, so one last tutorial for the day. Welcome back to the Film Alchemist. Today we're going to be working in Adobe Premiere. So if you don't have an applications folder down here, and PR, it's going to be a folder that looks like this. It's going to be purple or pink with a pink PR on it. That's Adobe Premiere. But if you don't see it, Command Space, start typing Premiere, and it should pop up. You can select it, or you can just hit enter or find it here. If you find it in your applications folder, you have to click it and then click again. Clicking it once just opens the folder with the application in it. You have to double click. Well, no, don't double click because it won't open it. Single click on it, then open the folder. Alright, so in here we want a new project. Name it whatever you want. I'm going to name this Premiere Tutorial. Seems appropriate. And click OK. Mine is going to be a little bit different than yours. Yours is going to ask you right now about the settings. Just click OK. The settings don't matter right now because we're going to change them anyway. So if yours doesn't look exactly like this, again, it's just a different version of Photoshop. So what we need to do though is we need all of our media that we're going to put in there. So the media I'm going to work on the Helmet Photoshop tutorial that we just did. So I'm going to drop it into this project folder down here. So there's my video, but I need audio with it. So I'm going to drop that in there as well. Alright, so I've got my two files. Now I'm going to drag my helmet folder over into the sequence area. And I'm going to drop it there. If yours says something like this, clips mismatch warning. This clip does not match the sequence settings. Change sequence to match clip settings. You are almost always going to change sequence settings. If it's something where you are working with a very, very small file, and when I mean small, I do not mean small in the actual size of the file, I mean the pixels of the file. If you are working with something that is 720p or above, you will always change sequence settings. So now, this is what's in my sequence. So up here, I can see this video that I just recorded. If I don't change the sequence settings, I'll show you what happens. So if I make File, New, Sequence, and click OK, now when I drag my folder over here and keep, notice how zoomed in it is. Sometimes it might be really zoomed in, sometimes it might be the exact opposite. Let's see. Let's go to a 5K format. Now when I drag this over here, keep settings, it's tiny. So if you don't change either the settings of your sequence or change the settings of your file to match, they're not going to match up here. It's either going to be too small or too big. So unless I tell you otherwise, always change sequence settings. Alright, so I've got my file. I'm going to drag my audio in, and I'm going to play this. So the first thing, you guys won't have to do this very often, but this is something that is done more than anyone who ever works with Premiere would like to admit. Your audio and your video many times are going to be separate files, and you're going to have to match them up. So I'm going to match them up really quick. So I need to move that over a little. Alright, so that looks pretty good. So that means I don't need the front of this video. Alright. And don't worry, I'm going to explain what I just did. I'm just trying to get ready. Alright, so now when I play this, my audio and my video are linked. But if I come to the end of this, so up on the top is this little flag, this flag. I can drag back and forth to play the file. If I hit spacebar, it's going to play it. Down here, I can grab the end of this, I can zoom out, or I can zoom in. Or if I click the middle of it, I can drag to move it. Alright, so let's look at the end of this file. So here's close to the end. Let's go to the very end of it. Alright, so that's the end of the tutorial, and I've still got a lot of audio there. So I want to clear that away. So over here on the side are all your tools. You're not going to use most of these, because a lot of these are going to be easier to use in other programs in Adobe, or if we're not in another program, it's just things that we don't use yet. Eventually maybe we'll look into it, but for now we're not to that point. We want to use the selection tool and this razor blade down here. So the razor blade, wherever I click, so I need to zoom in because I need to be at the end of this audio file. Alright, so right there, I'm going to click on my audio to trim it. Now if I click this, it split it into two files. It cut it, just like a razor blade would. Now I can click on that piece and I can move that wherever I want. I can click on this one and there are two separate files. Yours, when you do this, if you drag a file in and it already has audio, it might look like this, where if I cut one thing, I cut them both. If that's the case, we're going to come down here, we're going to right click on either the video, which is on top, or the audio on bottom, come down this arrow and click unlink. So now the audio and the video are two separate files. So the other things you can do in Premiere, the other things we are going to do in Premiere, we're going to use effects to do that. We can either come up here to Window and find Effects, or we can click on this little button here. We want the transitions, video transitions, and normally we're going to stick with the pretty down-to-earth ones. We want a dissolve, and I'm going to go with this dip to black. I'm going to drag it, I'm going to drop it right on the front of this. So now when I play this, it fades in. If I put the exact same effect on the end, it's going to fade out. Without that effect, it just goes away. So that effect is it's a transition, and it just slowly transitions from one thing to the next. If I zoom way in, I can actually see my transition right there. This is actually A is where it starts, B is where it ends. All we really are worried about is how long the transition is. So if I come down here and I hover over it, I get this little red bracket. If I click and hold on it and drag it out, I can increase the time of the transition. And if I increase the time of the transition, it's going to go much slower. I can also add in audio transitions. So I can do my fade. Fade is going to be the main transition that we're going to use in After Effects, or sorry, in Premiere. So it really doesn't do much there because I'm not even talking. But if I put it at the beginning, You can hear it slowly fade in. The last thing I'm going to show you guys is, well, let's do a couple things here. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to show you what happens with all of these different layers. So I have V1, V2, V3. Those are different layers of video. So whichever one is on top is what will play. So if I move this over on top of that, that's not a good example. Let's grab something over here where we're going to zoom out. We're going to cut this. So now, if I move this over here and put it on top, when I click play, it's just going to jump to whatever's on top. Same thing if I put this up here, it's only going to show what's on top. This is how we can make overlays. So like when we put the dance cam on the board, if we had something like that, if we had made graphics, we could put them on top of it here. And we can actually make graphics right here. So if I go back to the project window and I click this file for new item, I can make a title. So titles. And here I can just type. So if I click and drag to make my box, type title and close that. If I drag that over here, you can actually see my title appear there. So if you ever are working in Premiere and you're not seeing what you think you should be, it might be a layer issue and nothing else. Alright, so we're going to go way back until these two are connected. There we go. Alright, now really the last thing I'm going to show you. So if I right click on my audio, I can come down and I can edit clip in Adobe Audition. And when I click that, it's going to open this in Adobe Audition for me. It's going to render that audio file. It's going to open an Audition where I can edit the audio, save that audio, and put it back in Premiere. And it's just taking away one little step. So you don't have to make your video, put it in an Audition, edit the audio out, put it back in Premiere. Now you can cut one step out. Alright, so that is the bulk of Adobe Premiere. Here in a week or so, we're going to put together a video that uses everything you've learned so far. So now let's export this so you guys can save your video and we can get out of here. So the format is going to be H.264 and the preset is going to be HD 720p. And we're going to go with 25 frames. That's technically not what the board's at, but that's going to give us a progressive frame rate. If this ever says upper first or lower first in the field order, then you've done something wrong because it's going to be a very wavy, ugly format when you're done. Alright guys, hope you learned something.